Hi everyone, I hope all is well. It's a little cold outside, so I decided this week to move in. But anyway, this week's Parsha is Parshat Vayera. And in this week's Parsha, we get introduced to a new character in the Torah, being Yitzchak. Now, what's like the first story we have with Yitzchak in this week's Parsha? So we see obviously with Sarah, she laughs, right? She has Yitzchak, okay, that's a story, but it's not involving Yitzchak directly. So the first story involving Yitzchak directly is actually with his brother, Ishmael, which is very relevant today. And what's the story? Well, Sarah is making the claim to Abraham that Ishmael, Yitzchak's brother, Abraham's son from Hagar, is mocking, harassing Yitzchak. And what does Rashi say? Rashi says that really what's happening? Ishmael had the intent to kill Yitzchak. He wanted to kill him. Why? So he had the birthright. He had the birthright from Abraham all to himself. That's what he wanted. So he would shoot arrows at Yitzchak with intent to kill Yitzchak. Okay. Now I'm just asking everyone, just keep that in the back of your mind. We'll loop back to that in a minute. So what else happened to Yitzchak in this week's parsha? Specifically, when was the first time that Yitzchak said anything? When was the first time that Yitzchak said a word? So if we look further on in this week's parsha, we get to the Akedah Yitzchak, where Abraham goes and almost slaughters Yitzchak. And Abraham gets ready in the morning, right? He packs up all the stuff, he's going. And finally, it's been almost the whole parsha, finally Yitzchak speaks. And he says to his father, to Abraham, he says, I see where already you have all the wood and everything, but where's the lamb to slaughter? What's going on here? He said it in a very question focused, like as an inquiry to Abraham. It's just something also to note about Yitzchak in particular. So these are just two references to Yitzchak's behavior in this week's parsha. And Yitzchak is a very interesting biblical character to study, in contrast to this week's parsha, next week's parsha, and Parshat to follow. But anyway, Yitzchak as a whole from these two instances doesn't speak very much, even though he's in situations where maybe it would be beneficial for him to speak up. His brother's trying to kill him in one, and seemingly his father's trying to kill him in another. So what's really going on with Yitzchak here? So we have a concept that each of the avos, each of the fathers, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, all have their embodied traits, their midot, which I've spoken about before. Now Abraham's midah is chesed, is loving kindness, which I spoke about a few times, I think, which really means acting wholeheartedly for Hashem right away without hesitation. That's Abraham. Yitzchak embodies the characteristic, the trait of gevura, of strength. Right? Now, what does this really mean? I think by these two instances, we could really understand what this gevura, what this strength means. By looking at Yitzchak, we see that in these instances where maybe you would think that he would go yell for help and speak out, he's really quiet. You see that Yitzchak looks who's around him. Let's circle back now. When Ishmael was shooting these arrows at Yitzchak to try to kill him, Yitzchak looks around. He sees his mother there. Sarah was a force. Right, she was a force to be reckoned with. She really meant business. He saw that Sarah was there. Sarah was going to take care of him. He saw that Avimelech, Shem and Aver, all these big people are all on Yitzchak's side already. And he saw him and he said, look, I don't need to use my voice here. I'm taken care of. And when he's going up for the Akedah, for the where Avram almost kills him later in this week's parsha, he uses his voice. He just wants to clarify. He's like, is what I think going on actually happening? And once he gets a sense of what's happening, right, there's midrash that says that Yitzchak went with the flow with Abraham. He totally didn't say anything because Yitzchak was quiet and he realized what was really going on. He realized that he was in a safe place at the end of the day with his father. Now, what can we learn from this? So we see the difference between chesed of Abraham and gevura of Yitzchak. Now really, where should we be on that spectrum? Should we be closer to Abraham or closer to Yitzchak in terms of where we are? So we'll see in later parshiot, the ideal for the Jewish people is to be in the middle, which is really embodied by Yaakov. The Rambam talks about it. I've spoken about it before. It's called Tiferet, splendor. It's between the gevura of Yitzchak and the chesed of Abraham. Now, what can we really learn from this? And I'll end with this bracha, that we should all really aspire to take aside in every situation we find ourselves in throughout this conflict going on in Israel, whether it's a situation where we should act like Abraham and we should be going full force, wholeheartedly for the sake of Hashem, like strong with our voices loud, or whether we should take a more of a Yitzchak approach and look around, see if this is really worth our words to be used for this purpose. And I think in this conflict in particular, there are cases where both are applicable. Now, I think it's really valuable for us to hear this, especially this week's Parsha, and I just wanted to point out that every single Parsha that has been since October 7th has really aligned perfectly with what's going on, and I think it's no coincidence, and very, very interesting to think about in the coming weeks as well. With that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom. I apologize I went a little over this week, but I will see you all next week. Shabbos.